Miriam, I've already sent you a request as a co-host. So good morning, all of you. That is the introduction of the debate. Let's begin with, as Miriam comes as a co-host, we wanted her to begin by giving us the news headlines, but I don't know whether, Miriam, can you join as a speaker first? Then we see, I don't know why it is not having you as a guest. Come down and join as a speaker. Come back. Okay. She has disappeared again. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not here. Ladies and gentlemen, Kafidit can now speak. Tawish, can you begin by opening the floor? The legacy of the late President Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. What do you know about it? Let's find out. Has it taken root? Has it taken root in Africa? Has it succeeded? Which other country in Africa has been able to emulate his dream? Will it ever come to pass? Thank you very much. Let's go on. Tawish, the mic is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. David Masanga, and thank you all the colleague panelists, and of course also to our viewers and listeners watching this program in Kenya, Africa, and the rest of the world this morning. Of course, being a Friday, it's a great being on this show this morning, Dr. Masanga. And very great topic we are having this morning, more so regarding the legacy of one of the founding fathers of the African nation, that is Tanzania. We're talking about the late president, that is Julius Kambarage Nyerere of Tanzania. And Dr. Masanga, as you have alluded to, of course, when you talk about developing Africa, when you talk about advocating for Pan-Africanism, when you talk about patriotism in the continent of Africa, when you talk about giving a chance and opportunity, not only for the natives, say, for example, in Tanzania, but generally in the African continent, and even for other young nations to be able to grow, you wouldn't quite be able to conclusively talk about that topic without a mention of the late President Julius Kambarage Nyerere of Tanzania. And the reason why I'm saying so, Dr. Masanga, is because away from championing the unity of the people of Tanzania and bringing together the people of Tanzania, the late President Julius Kambarage Nyerere also advocated for the unity of the people of Africa. And he did give even ground and opportunity and even sanctuary to most African leaders and pro-democracy crusaders. A case in point is, for example, South Africa, also Uganda, if I may mention, Dr. Masanga. I mean, most of the African nations that got her independence, more so after Tanzania, really have had a history to do with Tanzania. And it is not because of any other thing, but because of the level of patriotism and the love for African continent and the Pan-Africanism that was the person of Julius Kambarage Nyerere. And so it will be very, very difficult for us to talk anything about the African continent, its development, how we are able to get independence without a mention of one Kambarage Julius Nyerere. You remember even some time back, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni of Uganda, in one of his speeches, he made a reference of one Julius Nyerere, to the extent that even wanted the church really to call or refer to President Nyerere as a saint, leave alone of being a Pan-African, leave alone being a great leader, leave alone being a Christian and patriot, a person who was a devoted Catholic. But because of what he sacrificed, because of putting the interests of the other nations in the continent of Africa ahead of that of even Tanzania, really qualified him, according to Museveni, that this is a man we should actually even call a saint for that matter. So it does speak about our leadership in the African continent, Dr. Masanga, and even when you discuss about the legacy that he left behind, and what is it that we can copy or learn from his leadership style, from his patriotism, Dr. Masanga, there's so much. I think there's an aspect of selflessness that President Nyerere did really attribute during his tenure as a president and a leader in that particular country, Dr. Masanga. And it is not something you will say it is manifested in most of our leaders today, the selflessness nature of President Nyerere. You asked the question, are there nations that are trying to live to the spirit, live to the legacy, live to the what, for example, President Nyerere really lived for? Dr. Masanga, today you wouldn't quite be able to really even list down some of our presidents or even countries that will be willing really to give a sanctuary like President Nyerere did to some of the African leaders or those who are agitating for democracy. It is not easy. In fact, you will find in the African continent today, our leaders and some of these countries will be very quick even to expose or even hand over some of our leaders, be it opposition or otherwise, even to the Western power nations or even to the Western power courts. But that was not the case for, of course, Tanzania and particularly President Nyerere. And that is why today, Dr. Masanga, even after over 20 years since his demise, Dr. Masanga, I mean, the continent of Africa remembers so vividly the role that was played by President, of course, Julius Nyerere. And I think this is the spirit we need to inculcate even in our present and future generation, to understand that for this continent to be able to make a remarkable progress, for it to be able to develop as a continent, and for us to be able to champion the unity of purpose as the African people, then we will have to emulate, we will have to live by that legacy and spirit that President, of course, Nyerere espoused during his time, Dr. Masanga. I think we are going to exhaustively discuss about some of the major things really he was able to do in the interest of the African continent, in the liberation front. I've given the example of South Africa. And Dr. Masanga, yourself, you're actually in the right position to be able even to tell us exactly, because you have a first-hand experience about how Tanzania played host to Ugandans who are running away from the dictatorship that was during those days, and even giving you, of course, home, and giving you an opportunity even to train as soldiers in that part of the continent. So, I mean, there's a lot that we can say about President Nyerere, but I hope as the African people and more so the African leaders should be challenged really to live up to the aspirations, to live up to the expectation and the life that President Kambarage Julius Nyerere lived during his time. Dr. Masanga, for now, I submit.
Thank you very much, Tawish, for opening a hard topic that is that is tough. Thank you very much. Miriam, I can see you have come in as a speaker. I've been calling you to come as a co-host. I don't know why you are rejecting the post. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I was waiting for that, but I think there was a bit of a technical hitch. But I'm here anyway, so we can just enjoy the conversation.
Go ahead and tell our viewers the news in Nairobi, Kenya, what are the headlines. Then we come to the topic. Gaddafi dish Kafidi, you are number 2 next on the line. Then we have KB on the line. Then keep tonight on the line for speaking. Any other speaker, you just tune in. I will bring you in. The topic: Tanzania, the Nyerere factor. What lessons do we learn on unity in Africa? Let's take it. But first, let Miriam give us the headlines in Africa somewhere in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you. This is the new technology that we are deploying. I'm very far from Miriam, very far from you, and I want us to change. And you see, all televisions are going to change up to this now. Mark me in your record that I'm the first one who has done it. So tomorrow, people in Africa, if you don't praise yourself, they will never praise you, Miriam. Take the microphone.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Doc, for that. I'll just take us quickly through the headlines this morning. The Star newspaper from Kenya: Kinoti lied over judge. Top DCI top confesses. That is the main headline. The Daily Nation: Ruto recalls Moi's cars and staff. That is also the other headline. The Standard newspaper: Ruto's power structure. That is the main headline. And we just move swiftly to other headlines from across the continent of Africa. The Nation from Nigeria: Omatekun corpse, others can't tackle banditry, says El Rufai. The Guardian, also from Nigeria: IPOB Masob jubilate as court quashes charges against Kanu. And New Vision from Uganda: 5 years in jail for social media abuse. And Daily Monitor, also from Uganda: Rwanda Ebola drugs cure 20 patients. And The Independent from the UK: Truth gets ready to make another U-turn on tax. The Mirror from the UK: our message to Qatar. The Citizen from Tanzania: local content rules ignored. That is according to suppliers. And recalling Mwalimu's reverting speeches over the years gone by. The Guardian from Nigeria: not from Nigeria, from Tanzania: prioritize Vita graduates in soft loans. And the Daily News from Zimbabwe: dialogue is only at hand in Poland. And the Newsday, also from Zimbabwe: ZEC evasive on the limitations. So that is what we have on some of the headlines this morning from across the continent of Africa. Back to you, Doc.
All of you have now had the opportunity of hearing the news across Africa. Now we come to the real crunch of the problem. I think let me not have good manners by removing the cap so that you can see me properly. I'm misbehaving, being on a television, and then I have a problem that should not have good manners while you are on television. Thank you very much, viewers. This is Matanga Africa. This is Matanga Twitter Space together with Punchline Africa TV. As you speak your views, you are on the TV directly. So the only thing you will not see yourself speaking. So let me come to the topic. Miriam, thank you very much for opening this for us. Let's come to the real topic now. The Nyerere factor. What lessons do we learn? We saw quite a lot of African leaders, everybody in his speeches, PLO Lumumba, every African scholar is quoting Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. What do you know about Nyerere? What do you get out of Nyerere? What did you learn from him? Even if you are not born together with him, even if you are not in Tanzania, as Tawishi says already, some of us benefited from Tanzania. The discipline that we have, some of us have discipline today in our hearts of feeling for Ubuntu, for people, Ubuntu. What Ubuntu do we have? You find a person in Africa being beaten on the streets. Do you just pass? Do you understand? Do you stand and say, hey, why are you beating my brother? Let me hear from Kafidi Gafdid, can you now
Yeah,
take the mic, please?
thank you, Dr. Masang. I appreciate your topics. It is my first time to joining your conversation, even though I didn't get a chance in the previous episode. But let us proceed today in this beautiful subject. I'm from so-called Ethiopia under the Ethiopian Empire. I'm Somali by ethnicity under Ethiopian colony. However, was according to the topic Nyerere, even though I will not pronounce the pronunciation of the name of the father of the nation may be difficult for
It's
me,
called
but as I
Nyerere. It is called
yes,
Nyerere. Nyerere.
Nyerere.
Yes.
Thank you,
Or you can
thank
simply
you.
call Julius. You can say Julius. Julius.
Yes,
President
Julius. Yes,
Julius Kabarage.
Julius
Oh,
Nyerere. Yes,
yes. Julius Nyerere.
thank
Thank you
you,
very much.
thank you.
Proceed.
What we learn from him, the subject that what we learn from him is Pan Africanism, how the continent will be united. We know when African states are went in some other country, they dehumanize or undermine it. For example, I remembering in conference that happening in, I think it was Tunisia, when they invited to the Japan prime minister, the whole African, the whole continents were, invading one nation. When we see African to Turkey Semite, African to Japan Semite, African to Indian, this is ridiculous to us. So I think what we learn from him, the continent to be have a one nation in federation. So I hope that East African will benefit in such lesson that they learn from the father of the nation. We didn't study, normally we didn't study from the history in our books or in our schools. We did not learn from African in unity or in African pan-Africanism, because the where I come from, the Ethiopian only teach, what they call their imperial, uh, but not nevertheless, I wish that the one day African Union, African have a one state which prosper. So the lesson we learning from him is to hate, to how to, the narrative against the colonial, how the colonial divided us, how the colonial, how we became the playground of the Westernian power, and this is something that African to reject in such colonial. Let me say, we know that the African nation is have synonym with the poverty, synonym with the migration, synonym with the fighting or civil war, genocide, and so on. And this is the what that the European did or designed in 1884 in Berlin. So we have to learn our history. We have to make our own philosophical thinking, and there is no way that to follow their democratic so-called, which is not based on human rights, but kindness of the, it is their own faith or the new religion that call it democrats, which might not fit to the African. So African must think and produce what their ideology is based on, and which is not running to the European. So what I could say that it is best for African to redesign or to redraw their own thinking, or the how to state to be built, and how the people should be respecting their perspective. So let me conclude. Let us be united as African, and let us rejecting the Westernian dominance. And the African Union should be, the African Union is not belongs to the African Union until now. They are still the colonial puppet. So they should be acting as the African leaders, not to the puppet of the Westernian powers. So that is my opinion. I have a request. So later on, I have a question for you, and then I will ask you later on. Thank you. Yeah, I done it. The mic is yours.
Let's move on to, thank you very much for those good words. My brother from the great place, the one that needed. You remember Emperor Haile Selassie, the leader of Ethiopia, one of the founding fathers of African unity, of the Organization for African Unity. Emperor Haile Selassie, together with Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, founded the African organization called AU, which was later on transformed into AU from OAU. What lessons, Miriam, what do you think a man from Ethiopia, which we used to know, Tigray now is under siege from the same, within the same country. What do you think Mwalimu Julius Nyerere would have done? Because I will tell you one good example. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere would have already recognized the Biafra again. You remember when Biafra took a center stage. Why I brought this topic today is it coincides with the release or the dismissal of cases against the Biafran IPOB leader, whose cases have been dismissed after serious filing of very serious constitutional matters in the London Old Bailey. A very serious case that was going to bring Nigeria to knees with sanctions. I think they came to bear the brand and dismissed the case. So there's a lot of pressure going on. Application documents have been taken for him to be released. But what I believe is that Nnamdi Khan will be now deported back to United Kingdom. So Buhari might not allow him to stay in his country to see in the grave of his father, because he's a British national anyway with a passport where he should have been taken in the first place. But thank you very much. That's a topic for another day. Let's wait for his release and his press statement from the many people asking why I did not conduct that story today. I'm conducting it when the lawyer has spoken, and finally we have Mr. Nnamdi Khan in our hands. You know, Buhari operates in a different way. So let me come to my sister. Kiptanui, you'll have to wait a bit. Let's bring in Zain. Zain, tell us where you are calling from and where you are speaking from and where you come from, and speak on the subject. Dr. Julius Nyerere Kambarage, the founding father of Tanzanian state. What lessons do we learn on unity in Africa? Zain. Zain, you have the microphone.
Oh, hello, someone. I wanted to. I just joined it. Maybe somebody else can continue, and then maybe I'll speak later. Hello.
Take the microphone. Kiptanui, take the microphone. Okay. KB speaker. KB speaker. Take the microphone.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Matanga. Good morning. I'm Kabir from Nigeria. Quite interesting topic because what value he tries to, advocate for true African liberation and perhaps potential African development. You know, in African history, when we talk about colonialism and what it brings, forth to the African people and African continent, there will sure be that conscious attempt to find, liberation and to move ahead, so we don't continue to suffer dehumanization from our colonial masters. And this liberation and self-development is what, for me, Julius Nyerere stands for. And in achieving this, there are certain values that must, be opined, such as unity among the African people. I remember him standing for a peaceful change in this sense of trying to liberate ourselves from our colonial masters peacefully and not violently. That, for me, is a very strong value, peace. And he equally advocates the need for social equality, that is, giving everybody a level playing ground and avoiding all forms of discrimination, and thinks and believes that Africa as one is much better developed than a divided Africa. Because for sure, when we have a divided Africa, you give room for colonial masters to penetrate, in Africa, and therefore making the desired change or thought pattern or the aspiration of the African people not achievable. Therefore, he strongly believes that if we as Africans stand as one and be called Africa, it is much better for a united front than an individual African entity, and which for me, I strongly believe. And on this note, when you ask the question, what lesson have we learned? We all agree that having been united as Africa is the best way to go. I remember the era of African Union, the Organization of African Union. But as we speak today, perhaps it's not there and not living to its dreams. Why? Because we decided to be divided, or our leaders sentimentally decide to divide the African people and not carrying or upholding the values and aspirations of these founding fathers of great minds. And that's such pity for us. And having this conversation, I think perhaps new generations of Africa could take a cue from this, thinking process, and perhaps chart a new course to a better Africa. Because we actually need to be united as Africa, as a continent, because we suffered same thing, common. We had some, common history, common suffering, and we equally have common aspiration as to having a united and developed Africa. And not until we unite as a people, taking a cue from this philosophy of Julius Nyerere of better together, then Africa certainly will not be moving anywhere. Because it is the dream of the colonial masters, it is the wish of the colonial masters to keep us in perpetual poverty. And the only way to achieving that is disuniting us. And I think some of African leaders are taking part in this, orchestrated or conscious attempt to divide Africa. And these leaders are involved deliberately for self-gain in trying to disunite Africa, why trading us for the Western world. And I think we have to stand up for it and fight it strongly, ideologically and through empirical, ways. I yield for down, Dr. Matsanga.
Thank you very much. Miriam, back to you in the studio. You, before I give you, land the mic and go back to the studio so that you can make a few comments that you have seen, or you can also make a contribution. I want to thank you, KB, my brother from Biafra, from Nigeria, from Biafra, sorry.
I'm not from Biafra. I'm not from Biafra. I'm from Nigeria.
I'm from Nigeria, sorry. I want to thank you. I remember very well Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, when the issue of Biafra and Nigeria, Yakubu Gowon and Ojukwu, for the people, students listening to us and watching, taking notes, because there are some people who are taking notes here as students of African politics. For those taking notes, you better remember one thing that Julius Nyerere did. That was the situation of Biafran War and Nigeria between Gowon and Ojoko. It was Dr. Julius Kabarage Nyerere, the first man to recognize Biafra. And he did not fear. He said, for the war to end, we must make one side be recognized, and that side recognize that there is a government that was in central government, but we have split away from the government. Let's recognize Biafra. Look at that. Obote followed. Jomo Kenyatta followed. Haile Selassie followed. Kaunda followed. NASA followed. You see, people followed now. The AU was divided, cut in the middle. And then, within a short time, the African Union was forced to call for a summit, a special summit in Kampala. And it started another summit before Kampala, then finally it came in Kampala to finally remove the obstacles of this war. And there was a peace agreement signed, which still stands up to today. So this is a leader that we cannot ignore. This is a leader who has done something for Africa. This is a leader who can speak. When people refused to allow apartheid, ANC, ZANU-PF, ZIPRA, FRELIMO, MPLA, SWAPO, liberation movements, guess who allowed them? Nyerere. Nyerere said, they call you terrorists outside there. I call you liberators. Come to Tanzania. Ladies and gentlemen, on this platform, whether we are few, we are 2 or 3, God will hear our message. Let's celebrate this gentleman. All freedom fighters from Algeria, from Conakry, from Portuguese territories, from Zanzibar, which was Harare, Northern Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, all ANC, all these Thabo Mbekis you see, all these people you see today grabbing power in South Africa, all of them came through Tanzania. Nyerere stood in the Commonwealth and recognized that people have to be liberated. One of the acts that I love Nyerere for is the act to liberate Africa. Miriam, I can see Cape Tanui. They also need to hear a voice of the lady. If you have some comments from that side in the studio, say it. The microphone is to you. I land.
All right, Doc, thank you so much. And of course, for the speakers who have already made very important points in line with remembering this great Pan-African who is considered, he's known in Tanzania, Baba wa Taifa, that is the father of the nation indeed. That is the figure that he held, a uniting figure for the people of Tanzania and indeed for Africa. And of course, his life was dedicated to the ideals of human dignity and common humanity. So I think if Nyerere was to, to be alive today and see some of these atrocities that are happening in this continent, the conflict in Ethiopia, the conflict and the insecurity, say, in Nigeria and other parts of Africa, I'm not sure if he'll be very happy with what is happening today because he dedicated his lives to the ideals of human dignity You know, he believed every person had a right to live a dignified life, whether you're poor, whether you're rich, and that's why he pushed for the social change of the people of Tanzania, and indeed that was his belief for the rest of Africans. He was born in many years ago, but he died 23 years ago in 1999, 14th October, and that is today, and that is why it is known as the Julius Kambarage Nyerere Day. He died on the 14th of October, 1999. He was born on the 13th April, 1992. And as I said, he was known as the Baba wa Taifa, a father of the nation and the moving force for the independence of Tanganyika. And as we can all remember, and some of the speakers have rightfully said so, he carried the torch of liberation for the rest of Africa, among other founding fathers in the continent. And Nyerere also will be remembered as one of the great minds that formed the helped in the establishment of the Organization of African Unity, which later became the African Union. And the main objective was political liberation for the rest of the continent. And their tool for achieving this, the OAU Liberation Committee, was hosted by Tanzania at that time. And the most liberation movement were based there at one time or another, as Doc and the rest of you have already mentioned. Tanzania was very critical under the leadership of the late President Nyerere in liberation of the continent of Africa. He carried indeed that torch, and he believed in the strong ideals and self-sufficiency of Africa as a continent. Of course, Mwalimu often said that his generation had achieved at least one goal, and that was to politically liberate Africa. And he realized that even with that, there was some limitation. Now they had to give way for the next generation, and the next generation must now take up the next goals after he was able to achieve him and other great sons and daughters of Africa were able to ensure that Africa is liberated. He said now it's about time. And of course, he retired from politics in the 80s, I believe. And I think that is one thing that a lot of our leadership here in the continent could appreciate. Because that is not the case. He retired from active politics in 1985 and as the chairperson of the Chama cha Mapinduzi in 1990. And Tanzania since then has had presidential transitions, very peaceful ones. We've seen presidents come and go, Ali Hassan Mwinyi. We've seen Benjamin Mkapa, the late now. We've seen President Jakaya Kikwete and others, and the late, Magufuli. So these are the ideals. He was a very selfless person. And he looked at this country, Tanzania, as it belonged to everybody in Tanzania. And like many of our leaders here in the continent who think that being in a position of power, being the president or a head of state, is like a personal enterprise, and others will just cling on there, violate the constitution, disregard human rights, and as long as they're benefiting and the status quo is kept, nobody really cares for the common person. And those are things that Julius Nyerere fought. He believed in the dignity and humanity of all people, and of course his legacy and commitment to integrity, unity, dignity, and equality. I think that was the rallying call throughout his leadership and his commitment into ensuring that this is achieved. So that is just a bit of how perhaps Julius Kambarage Nyerere is remembered in Tanzania, in Africa, and indeed across the world. He is quite a respected son of the soil. Doc, back to you.
Thank you very much, Miriam. I want to thank all of you who have joined this Twitter space, all diplomats who are on the Twitter space. We must use the language decorum, the decorum language. Let's have, when you are speaking, don't insult other people. Don't threaten people on this Twitter space. Don't use hate language on this Twitter space. We want it to grow and grow bigger so that you don't fight, but use it as a medium of exchange of ideas on how to make Africa better. How to make Africa better. Because there are so many people interested in some of the statements that we make here, and the people use them for either making our lives better as African on the continent. This Twitter space is meant for you to see what happens elsewhere, and therefore tag each other as you are on Twitter space, and tag us, tag our Punchline Africa TV in Nairobi, and myself, Dr. David Nyerere Matanga in London, and I everywhere you are, tag each other. I have been on the subject of making peace for Africa. We don't want violent attributes, violent discussions on this platform. We want peace. We want a united Africa, a united Africa. But as much as we want a united Africa, Miriam, and the colleagues on this platform, there are areas that pain us, like the area of Tigray. The Ethiopia was once a very good country, a well-established country in Africa with a GDP which was so huge, so good for Africa. But today, when we look at Africa, Miriam, the panel, you are my co-host, and the people on the panel, the speakers, and the listeners, look at Africa from down up to up. Isn't it a shame? This morning, I went back to write what we call poetic writing of politics, because politics is my subject. I studied it in London, and I want to thank the British government, the Her Majesty, the late Queen, and the system for having educated me to this level, to also impart the knowledge to other people so that a better Africa. Yesterday, Miriam, I was listening to a clip which I have sent to Stephen in the studios there. I don't know how we could play it here. An MP from Uganda said, we have built so many good, beautiful houses, but both the people with the houses inside, those who built the house and those outside, they don't sleep. Miriam, I don't know whether you have come across that clip. Are you still there, Miriam? I don't know whether you have come across. Yes.
Yes, I've come across it. To say that a few
if
months.
You can tell Stephen, if you can tell Stephen to look for that clip and play for our viewers here. And Lukwago, Mr. Lukwago, I can see you here.
Doc, I don't know if playing for viewers will be possible because of the kind of medium we're using, but perhaps you could just.
No, I can play it. I will play it from here. I have the equipment from my
possible.
side. Yes.
It's not possible. It might mess up the broadcast.
Okay, but I can play it from this side. On my system, I have another satellite system, but it's okay. You have seen the clip. The MP is crying that both the rich people and the poor people don't sleep. But the type of not sleeping is what we want to analyze in Africa. Mwalimu Nyerere decided to do what we call ujamaa. I don't know whether most of you know what ujamaa is. Ubuntu. Ujamaa means togetherness, socialist policies. These are some of the policies that made him very unpopular with most of the Western powers. But today, when you look at Tanzanians, and let's be honest, as I bring in Kiptanui and Fred, I can see Fred has come in. As I bring in another speaker, Tanzanians are the most humble people. If you meet them across anywhere, on a plane, going anywhere, they are very humble. They greet you in humbleness. Most of us Ugandans, Kenyans, oh my God, we look at each other as if we want to jump on each other. Ethiopians, on this platform right now, if you don't control it properly, Tigray, the Tigray and the other Ethiopian, and the suburb and the Tigray, They can eat each other on this platform. But Mwalimu Nyerere taught people togetherness, unity, the social fabric, the social contract. People have asked why Tanzania, there is freedom changing government without fight. In Kenya, how many times do we fight? In Uganda, how many times do we fight? Can you believe that a candidate in Uganda goes to put his papers, but he comes back with one shoe left inside? You call that an election? No. Look at Nigeria with a population of 84 million registered voters. How many voters come out? 28 million. Where did the other 56 go? Tell me. They sat home. But Tanzania goes to vote. After voting, they have one thing that has kept that unity. That is to say, you don't go to petition the presidential elections. Whoever has won with 30% ahead of one who has got 27% or 25% is the president. Is that some people on this platform will say that's not democracy. And I also want to hear your views. Don't think we are curtailing you. If that is not democracy, we want to hear your views. But they have kept their country united because they don't go and tear themselves on electoral matters. Democracy, you talk about democracy. Democracy evolution. It must change. It must take time. But we must begin to lay steps towards a united, progressive, tolerant society. I've lived in the United Kingdom for over 37 years. I vote with a proxy. I can vote when I am in Addis Ababa. I write my vote and I post it. When will Africa reach that status of posting a vote without somebody going to do a photocopy? So I am coming to that Ujamaa, the social life contract that Mwalimu Julius Nyerere did for his people. That today they join the hands, even if they are in difficulties, they remain together. A social contract that has enabled. If you go to Tanzania today, I was there a few weeks ago. I stayed there for almost 1.5 weeks. My God, Miriam and the panel, the roads are fantastic. The city Dar es Salaam is being built with metro buses, like the ones that you see, and the trams are coming, like the ones that we see in London and other metros of Europe. That is the type of a change from the Tanzania that we knew. Let me bring in one of our speakers, Kiptanui.
Thank you. Thank you for the...
You tell us where you are speaking from. Good morning for a long time.
Good morning, Dr. David. Good morning, our panelists. I'm actually joining this Twitter space from Nakuru CBD in Kenya, in East Africa. And I am actually happy to have come at that moment where you are hosting this topic on Nyerere. And I want to say this, most of the African countries are faced by conflicts, underdevelopment, war, and other challenges because of disunity. As you've said about Tanzania and Ujamaa, it is my wish that African countries could have actually emulated whatever the legacy that our founding father Nyerere left. You see, when I was in Tanzania in 2015 and I learned for almost 1 month, and I learned a lot of things. You see, when you are there, you cannot be able to identify that this person comes from this tribe. Unlike our country here in Kenya, you see, here you can be able to be given a government position, to be assisted, based on the tribe you are coming from. And that one has actually made most of the African countries not to develop, not to achieve whatever they are achieving. You see, when you see most of these African countries, you see electoral processes. Actually, electoral process has let us down, and if we were united and we condemn all these injustices, we could have even emulated whatever the late Julius Nyerere left. He has left a very rich legacy that if African countries could have actually emulated it, we could have been far. You see, and I want to use this in this morning a classical example of our country here in Kenya. That when you are from a certain ethnic group, you automatically you have numbers. You call it numbers here in Kenya. You can be able to rule. You can be able to separate people from aligning to different ethnic communities, and that has let us down. That has let us down because the whole country cannot be developed. You see, when you are owning the head of state, you are owning the ministers, they are coming from your community. Your community roads and other infrastructures can be built in your community, in your areas, based on where you come from. You see, and other parts of this country are not developed because it is perceived that it is a stronghold of opposition. If we were having a unified country in Africa, like Tanzania, whereby you cannot even identify who this person comes from. There is no ethnic profiling over there, and it has actually Tanzania is one of the African countries which is rich in democracy. You go to the elections, you elect president not based on or other leaders, not based on their ethnic alignment. So it is a wake-up call to African countries. We need actually to do something. We need to change. We need to change our way of leadership. We need to learn from whatever the rich legacy that our founding father Nyerere left there. Another issue I want to state this morning is that why is it that most of these African presidents they overstay, they change even constitution and stay for long in power? It's because of the greed. You see, we as you've said, Dr. David, about the electoral processes and electoral
We seem to have lost.
you see,
yes.
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Hear you very well.
Thank you. As I've said, thank you. As I've said, you said about voting in UK. You can vote in Addis Ababa. When actually when voting is going on in UK, you can vote in Addis Ababa. Here in Kenya, you cannot be able to vote when even you are outside your polling station. People will take those votes and photocopy and pre-mark it. And it has come actually. It has not only Kenya but also in most of the African countries like Uganda, you see, and other countries. It is because we have not actually matured democratically. We have not actually uphold the constitution that governs, and we have not actually come up with structures that can cut this. You see, during elections, I'm using elections as also an example. During elections, there are a lot of emotions. In Africa, it has become a do or die. If you cannot get this seat, what will happen? If people even are killing each other, you see, even electoral. You see, recently, my fellow Africans whom we are together in panel from Biafra, from other parts of this country. You see, our country recently we concluded elections last in August, and you might have seen what happened. You might have seen the fight which was there in Tarling Center, main Tarling Center in Bomas. You might have seen most of the people, most of the people who are working with IBC dying. You see, why are we going towards this direction, my fellow Africans? It is because we have not matured, and we have actually opened a space for West. We have actually opened a space for these people from abroad, from UK, from everywhere, from US, so that they can come, so that they just mess up with our electoral processes. so that they can mess up with our unity. So if you cannot if you divide a divided country cannot actually develop, because the side that supports the government can develop, unlike the side that is not in government. So I want to congratulate you, Dr. David, on this platform this morning. I saw our brother from Biafra, Nadi. He has no case to answer, and I am happy you've been fighting for them. Thank you so much for those my brothers and sisters from Biafra who are here. We are together. We pray for you and we support you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Here we are. I was waiting for a lady. We want to do gender parity here, Miriam.
Yes,
You are the
Koske.
only. Yeah, you. Thank you very much, Kiptanui. Kiptanui, can you switch off your mic? I don't want to take you off from this side. Can I switch? Kiptanui. Okay, thank you very much. You have now. Thank you very much. You have agreed to keep quiet, so I will not remove you. Thank you very much, viewers. This is a very disciplined, Miriam. It is a very disciplined platform everywhere. If you want peace of mind, you come to Twitter Space. Anybody making any silly mistake, you remove him by one button. He will not come back. So thank you very much. But we have behaved in decorum because we want to progress. Fred, tell us where you are calling from, where you are speaking from, and which country of Africa do you come from? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Masanga. My name is
Speak up, speak up. We listen to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Masanga. My name is Fred Allen, and I am speaking from Nairobi, Kenya.
Yes.
I am most impressed by this topic today, and it is good that we are discussing the legacy of one of the African greats, Julius Kambarage Nyerere. Let me begin by saying this. At the very advent of African independence, in the very first meetings in Addis Ababa.
Miriam, are you audible? Are you hearing?
Yes, I'm hearing. I'm just...
Okay, thank you very much. All of you, are you hearing Fred properly? Fred, increase your voice. I know you might be at your place of work, but just tell your boss to give you space for increase your volume, please.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. As I was saying, at the very beginning, when Africa was getting most of its independence, African nations, in Addis Ababa, I do recall that it is actually Julius Nyerere and one Asekiafo Kwame Nkrumah from Nigeria who are most passionate, who seemed to mean what they said about about Pan-Africanism. These are the men who were very passionate about. But I note also that it is Julius Kambarage Nyerere who seemed to live by what he preached to Africans. When you go to Tanzania, Julius Nyerere became a true symbol of national unity. To date, as we speak in Tanzania, you are Tanzanian first before you are one of a member of those so many tribes they have there. In other places in Africa, that is not the case. In Nigeria, you are first Fulani before you are Nigerian. In Kenya, you are first Luya before you are Kenyan. Even when you go to places like the Democratic Republic of Congo, most of the problems we see there are basically ethnic based. The issue has always been what the failures of our founding fathers. Some of them did not put in place the right structures, the right notions, and the right beliefs in the people. We now do not believe in our unity. We belong to our tribes first before we belong to the countries to our nationalities. That is. So this is, to me, the greatest legacy of Julius Nyerere. Some may think that maybe Muammar Gaddafi was maybe more passionate about Pan-Africanism. That is because he was alive a little longer. But I believe it is Julius Nyerere who preached and lived by what he preached in his own country. He lived the true charity begins at home adage. Now, what then do we learn from Julius Nyerere? This is what we can do. As African leaders, as we go forward, now we are moving from the generation that was, the generation of leaders that started, that can be called founding fathers. We are now in perhaps second, some third, and some, in some countries, fourth generation leaders. Some of these leaders do not actually, their identities transcend tribal, they go beyond tribal affiliations. If these leaders are passionate enough and are clever enough, they can start this, they can study the legacy of Julius Nyerere and try to foster those notions that we have in places like Tanzania. In Tanzania, you will never hear that a person who has been elected has to come from the largest tribe, like the tribe with numbers, like Kiptanui said. In most countries, it's about which tribe has more numbers, and if you can, kind of create apathy and create unities around certain tribes, then you can come to power. And therefore, the reasons for coming to power are not good reasons, because if we were to allow good people to come to power, we know for sure that good people can actually come from the smallest of tribes, like they do in Tanzania. They have had several elections and transitions, and they have never fought. In other places, they fight even when there is no transition, even when the person who has been elected is the person who has been there. This is a problem that can be dealt with the new generation leaders who are now beginning to look like people who believe in nationalism, who believe in being members of the country first before they are members of the tribes. Some of them don't even have tribal identities. Like here in Kenya, we do have some very young leaders who do not necessarily belong to any tribe. Some of them have been born out of marriages that are intermarriages. They don't even identify themselves as people from one tribe or the other. Some of them were born in places like Nairobi, where they are not necessarily affiliated to their tribes. So these are problems that have been created. The problems we have in Africa are problems that were created as a result of the failures of our founding fathers. And so if we can move forward with a new clarion call, a united people first, if we are in Kenya, for example, a united Kenya first can now go out there into the AU and preach a united Africa. You cannot come from Kenya where you are elected by only your tribe. The other people feel like they are not part of your government or part of your leadership or part of the country, and then you are in Addis Ababa preaching unity for Africa. That is not going to be achieved. If the Tanzanian president, Madam Samia, comes to AU and preaches unity in Africa, it feels more like it's genuine, because in Tanzania there is so much unity. In Tanzania, Samia Suluhu herself, I believe, is not from the biggest of tribes there. But she is the president, so was Magufuli, even if she took over from the late Magufuli on that unfortunate event. But I believe that when we have unity in our various countries, then we can go to Africa and then preach the unity of Africa. By the way, Dr. Masanga, you may notice that it is perhaps Julius Nyerere and maybe Nelson Mandela, and
Yes.
very few who have been able to, who are people who left behind families that cannot be called the richest families in their countries.
It is
Most
true.
most of the founding fathers left behind families that were tycoons. How did they become tycoons? They were not tycoons when they became a country. So you see, again, that's a legacy that we can learn. When you become president, it's not a chance for you. Kibaki told us here in Kenya, it's not a chance for you to enrich yourself. It's a chance for you to be of service to your people and improve the lives of others. I believe that is the way to go in Africa. If we can start seeing leadership as service, then we can become a United Nations, and then we become United African countries, and then we become United Africa. Thank you very much, Dr. Masanga.
Thank you very much, Fred. Thank you very much, my brother from Kenya. I can see Dr. Severin Aruse. Dr. Severin Aruse, please pick the mic, request the mic. I'm calling you to come. Dr. Severin Aruse from Tanzania, the United Republic of Tanzania. I can see you on the platform. Welcome. Just pick the mic, accept the mic, and give us a few words of wisdom from those good areas of Dar es Salaam. Thank you very much. The point, ladies and gentlemen, I can see Kafadid. Your hand is up. Let me hear why your hand is up. Take the mic.
Okay, thank you. I want to share something with you in terms of African, Pan-Africanism and the tribal politics, the war and the conflict in Horn of Africa or in East of Africa. So let me begin to say this. When we're talking about the African Pan-Africanism, there is a problem inside the countries, in each and every country. For us, under the Ethiopia, close to 19th century, on the various Anglo-Ethiopian concession in Somali region of Somali, or in Somali Peninsula, particularly in 1897, it was the crucial year to show the British succeeded a large party of Ogaden to Ethiopia. Why I'm saying that? There are several factors. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, by the way, maybe you may not happy what I'm saying that. The problem is there is African problem, there is inside problem. So we have to acknowledge that the Pan-Africanism had failed. The father of the nations have left behind many historical problem, which is unreconcilable. The problem of in Horn of Africa, especially in Ethiopia, which is now going on the genocidal war in the north, which have been, synonym with the war on terror, ethnic violence, brutal regimes that have been affecting in Ethiopia, the where I'm coming from. The problem of the father founding of Ethiopia has left many wounds to the Africans who live in that country. People of Horn of Africa, especially in Ethiopia,
Just a minute.
they did not feel.
Just a minute, my brother. Are all of you hearing? Can you give a signal on the chat? Are you hearing? Do you hear Mr. Kafidid? Dr. Al said, just use the chat down to say a signal whether you are hearing or not, like that. Are you, Miriam, are you okay?
Yeah, I can see people are as sending you the likes. They're telling you that we can hear. Yes, we can hear. Just continue.
Okay, fine.
Yes, there is a problem that many Africans didn't know what is going on in Ethiopia. Most of the people in Ethiopia, believing that they are living under the colony that African nations rejected in 16 years ago is still running in Horn of Africa. Because the in 1884 during the conference of Berlin, Ethiopia was was the only African country that have been attended for African scrabbling. They claimed the huge area or Horn of Africa, saying that Menelik say that I will not be only watching the European country defining Africa, I will take party. And he said definitely he take a party. He make an 18 different ethnic group by forces. And that problem that has created for 100 centuries ago is now manifesting. This will not bring to the prosper of African Union or Pan-Africanism. That is why many people are don't caring or don't.
Let me jump in here. Hold the mic. Kafidid, you are saying the problems of 1884 partitioning of Africa arbitrarily are coming back to haunt Africa today. Is that the point that we can hear from you?
Yeah. Let me say this. The problem of in 1884, we know the footprint of that problem, particularly in my hometown, the where it comes from, the footprint of that time in 1884, it is still running off on my history. It makes me sad to be African.
I ask you, are you from Tigray? Are you from Tigray or the other Ethiopia?
From Ogaden. I'm from Ogaden.
You are from Ogaden. That is also one of the areas that is contested, where there is also a lot of infighting, isn't it?
Yes. Now what they are doing is that because in that country, Ogaden is not considered as a true Ethiopian. It's Ethiopian itself. With the Ethiopian elite is saying that the Somalis cannot be good Ethiopian, portraying as the perpetuate outsiders. And that is why currently there is a forceful land eviction from the Ethiopian Empire. That is why we did not feel that we are a true Ethiopian. We believe that the Ethiopia come to us and conquer us in 1984 when the British succeeded to Ogaden to Ethiopia. In that case, the senses of Pan-Africanism might not be successful in my region due to the failing of Horn of African Union to not protecting the human rights violation that going on for half a century in my region, starting from in over Spain or here in my region has been an area of synonym with the across human valuation.
Kafidif, we have about 30 minutes left or so. We got your point, and I'm gonna bring the situation, the question of Ethiopia, Tigray, all this put together. I am gonna bring it next week. It is going to be on the platform on Friday next week, because I want us to talk. My television in Nairobi is specifically to talk about Africa, and Africa, the unity, the progress, the economic enhancement. What have we learned from the past? What can we learn from the present? What can we do for the future? That is all I'm looking for. Can we leave a legacy? Can we change Africa? We are a product of all raw materials, coltan, gold, diamonds, everything on African continent that you need in the world, in the Western Hemisphere. But we fight. We are beggars. We beg, not because we cannot do some things, because we are corrupt. There is corruption. There is quite a lot of things going on in Africa. There's plenty of corruption. There's plenty of human rights abuses that you see taking place in places like Tigray, where Eritrea is killing people daytime, openly, coming to kill people. And then the people are suffering. Then there is a war that is supported by external forces. That is in Ethiopia. Look at that. There is also a war. Mwalimu Nyerere, his legacy never wanted to listen to any war. By now, Mwalimu Nyerere would have already intervened in Ethiopian Tigray war. He would have sent his troops. In 1978, Idi Amin tried to tackle Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. He told him, I will be coming for you. And he went for him. I want to thank him wherever he is where he has gone to the Mecca. Thank you for doing the job. We overthrew Idi Amin in 1978. We removed him from power. I was one of the few combatants, younger age, very young at about 17, 18, when some of us walked all the way through the jungles of Kagera River, going back home to liberate, carrying briefcases of commanders. Look at that. Mwalimu Nyerere is valued on the continent for having united. Fred brought a very important thing that divides Africa. You see, the diplomats listening to this must understand that part of the problem, their job becomes very difficult. You get it? Their job becomes very difficult when you don't understand the background where things are. Look at the situation in Africa. People quarrel about democracy, but they don't know what democracy is. If you ask an African, what is the difference between democracy and elections? He will tell you they are both the same. No. We have to begin educating people on these platforms. And now, here we are. I will bring that topic next week. Don't miss. On Friday next week, the same time, on this platform, Matanga Space.
Thank you.
You will have time to speak, and I want you to be the key speaker and tell us what is going on in Ogaden. Are we reinventing the wheel? 1884, is it playing back on us? Is it haunting us? Let me bring in Hirad. Hirad, where are you speaking from, my dear brother? I always see you in other platforms.
David, thank you for
having me. The mic is yours.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope we can agree to disagree on basis of political point of views. Honestly, when we're talking about the Pan-Africanism and the unity of the people of Africa, we really need to represent ourselves as a true Africans. The more we represent, one side of the story, then we're missing the other side of the story. For example, of what's happening in the region in Ethiopia, one of the examples, and what's happening in Congo. And when we go back to the past, legitimizing, the colonial powers and their footprint, for example, the divide and rule, and the borders they make, the crisis they created between Kenya, Somalia, Kenya, Ethiopia, Somalia, Kenya, Uganda, all those kind of borders they left, wounds which will never heal unless we stand as people to realize that we need, to reconstitute the United Nations. The world needs United Nations for United Nations, not United Nations for United States and the colonial powers who, created the problems that we, as an Africans, are suffering and will suffer, unless we have new initiatives. For example, If you see the war in Congo, there's a lot of blames from Uganda, from Rwanda, from neighboring countries. And who's behind all of this is business. So what we're trying, what we need is really to have a real debate and dialogue, which is African-owned initiatives.
That's why
Like,
Herod, you have the platform here, debate.
but
The
the
war,
same time,
no,
David,
wait. The
let me
war in
let me finish this
Congo.
point. Let me finish
No,
this point,
I
David.
have to guide. I am guiding you. I am not cutting you short, but I want to guide you. The war in Congo. Whom do we blame? Do we blame? Whom do we blame? I think let's be honest. You are saying we have to be frank. Be frank.
Yeah.
Whom do we blame of the war in Congo?
We blame ourselves first, because we are the ones who choosing to follow small interests, especially our leaders and some of our activists. For example, David, what I see you as a person, you're trying your best. Personality, you're a good person, but at the same time, you're not alone. There's some invisible people in your mind. When I see your political, this is not the first time. I've been listening you for quite a long time, telling like, what when you used to support TBLF, what they have done, how many people they kill in Ethiopia, how they divide and rule in Ethiopia, how
Hirad,
many people, yeah,
Hirad, hold the fire. Brother, I'll give you time.
yeah.
I have never supported TPLF in any the last time I saw TPLF and its leaders was 1987 in London.
Yeah.
And
it is
wait,
recorded on debate
no,
on
wait.
BB
When,
on BB.
wait, I was working for Uganda Community Relief Association to resettle refugees. We had all run as refugees in the United Kingdom. And Zenawi, Isaiah Sefaki, Dr. Tedros, Dr. David here, Dr. Damba, and so many, including the president of Tigray right now. We were working, the British government gave us an office funded by the British Refugee Council. And I want to make it very clear so that you don't make mistakes of doubting me.
Not doubting
So
you.
I stood.
Okay, shall I remind you?
No,
shall I
wait.
remind
I
you?
worked with Zenawi and Isaiah Zefeki are my friends from London. So they left to go and overthrow General Mengistu Haile Mariam. Okay? I did not go back to seek favors from them. They later on fell out and started hammering each other. In London, while we were in that office, I want to tell you frankly, I used to separate the two. Because of my body, I used to stand in the middle. Isaias is very tall, Zenawi is very short. So Isaias wanted to beat Zenawi on the head. All the time, I am the tallest in the middle as a comrade. So I want you to get that history very clear. Don't say
I want to remind you. I want to remind you your own words.
Yes, I am not supporting TPLF. But I have friends in TPLF, and I'm a friend of the Ethiopians. I also know Prime Minister Abiy. Yes,
David,
I have finished now. You can now say what
let me remind you.
That is the record.
Okay, let me remind you. Also, I got your tweets that you're exchanging with you and Farah Mualim Dawara. And also, you publicly explained on debate Twitter space on, I think that was May, with is it BBC or VOA? Remind me, it's not Tenedi, is it? Or there is a debate that they hold on Fridays.
On the television station, I have spoken to my brother.
No, not the television, even the Twitter. So you was clearly supporting TBLF.
No,
At the
I
same time,
was telling you that TPLF needs a corridor. That tweet, I can bring it now. We need a humanitarian corridor for food to enter
no,
in Tigray.
and he,
Point.
no,
And that is here. We want to go further than that. My stand on the Ethiopian conflict is this, and I want to state it while you're here. Don't go away. I will give you time to speak. I want to state my stand on the conflict of Ethiopia. Both sides are being armed by external forces. And hear me today. Turkey, and me, I don't hesitate naming. If you have come to the platform here of this guy, I am not a joke. I name the platform the truth. Both sides are being armed, supported, logistically supplied by external forces. And now for us who want peace in Africa, we want to talk to those countries to stop arming Ethiopian government and to stop arming Tigray government. That's the stand. For any war to end, we must talk to the men funding these groups. In Congo, I am teaching you politics now, so that you can know. In Congo, their group, where do you think M23 gets its guns? It gets guns from somewhere. It gets guns. Okay, when they go and kill people, where do they go? They go somewhere. Brother, when you come to this platform, come with facts, because we shall cut you by intellectually. The M23 receives support from Rwanda. We have to be open. They have offices. They have in some of these countries in East Africa who are pretending to be resolving the conflict. Have you seen how M23 commanders come to buy things in the supermarkets? They buy like the world is coming to an end. Don't we see them? Then we go and blame. Now we have a blame. In Tigray, Tigray receives support from Egypt. Yes. We better stop this. In Somalia, Al-Shabaab kills us, but they get support from Saudi Arabia. Why is it that Al-Shabaab wears the same uniform that of the uniform of Saudi Arabia? Hala, don't touch me on this. I'm a peacemaker. You touch me, I come for you. I am not a warmonger. I am a peacemaker and I speak my mind.
David.
When Al-Shabaab kills us, where do they go, Hirat? When Al-Shabaab hits people in Kampala, in Kenya, in Nairobi, where do they hide? When they hit people in Mogadishu, where do they hide? Don't they run to Eritrea? Who is causing the problem of Ethiopia? Why don't you condemn Eritrea?
Okay,
yes.
Look,
now I've told you the truth. That's the true colors of this gentleman you are talking about. He speaks like Nyerere. Go ahead.
Okay.
I took a few minutes of yours.
Let me conclude this, David. You know, I've been following Congo for quite a long time. I was very close friend of one of the most well-known colonels who was in front line of the war in Congo, Mahamadou Ndala. He was a great young man who was into the front line defending his country from the invasion and supporting M23 from Rwanda, and as they were blaming in that time, and it was fact, you know, that is where the direction that where they attacking from Congo and Uganda. We know what's causing that wars. In Eritrea and Ethiopia war, we remember the border dispute issue, which being mediated between the the African Union and the United Nations. And if you remember Algiers meeting, they agreed that the Ethiopia to withdraw their troops.
I know everything. Come, For me, I know the background because I've been there. I know
withdraw.
everything
So
about
let me
that war.
let me
Bring
come
it
to
up.
correct,
Bring it
to
on.
correct. Okay, to correct you and to remind you your positions. For example, you were working with maybe other agencies claiming like that you had personally a locally elected MPs in Parliament of Somalia, and on that debate, you clearly that was last time. I knew. Look. I know you from Stratham. Look. I'm a
the
such. Look,
microphone.
hold on. Let me
Can
finish. Can I finish?
the microphone?
Can I
Yield
finish,
and
please?
hold the fire.
Can I
One,
finish? I
the
know you in
MPs.
London.
No.
Look.
You
I knew.
cannot misunderstand me. The MPs in Somali Parliament came to London for refugee status.
Can I
They
finish fast?
found Dr. David. Listen, they found me in London. I was already a refugee in London.
Yeah, but I'm quoting what you exactly said. So let you know.
Now I am telling you, those all the Somali refugees, MPs currently, most of them. If you go there in their parliament and ask about this face,
can I finish?
They will tell you they know me.
To remind you exactly how you say.
But what is the basis of your argument here today?
Okay, my argument is, hold on.
You are talking as if you want to disapprove.
So you're not letting me finish. Then how you can understand my points? Let me finish first.
I want to understand your point because the point is Nyerere, but you have brought in other things. If you go that route, we go. I'm very heavy banana on that one, and we shall roll.
Okay, let me finish.
No. I don't rely on cheapness. I know the MPs of Somalia in Parliament. They came to London. I had offices of Uganda Community Relief Association. I helped them. The war in Somalia took place in 1991. Matanga was already a refugee in London. My friend, were you born? You were not even born. So shut up. If you want to speak, speak. If not, get out of the platform. Stick to the policy. No, speak to Nyerere issue. If you remind me on that, I'll close you out of the space. Please, stick on the point. I'm giving you democracy. I've given you life, a lifeline. Either you stick on that, the topic,
am I allowed
or I chuck you out and never you come to my platform.
Okay, will you let me?
You are you are reminding me of what I've gone through. I went as a refugee in London. Were you born? Were you born? Shut up. Get out of my platform, please. Don't remind me of what I've gone through. And I don't want you to do that ever. I've suffered more than you have. I'm telling you a historical perspective.
Yeah, but this is what you personally said. That's all I'm quoting.
No, I don't want that cheapness.
Okay, thank you.
You stick to the topic or you get out of my platform. Full stop. I am not lying. The MPs in Parliament know me. Go and ask them.
Yeah, but you should not start debate if you don't have tolerance.
No, I am not coming here for
this is the
debate.
Basic principles.
Sorry,
of debate
I am not coming for a cheap debate. The debate today is the Nyerere factor. What lessons do you, as a Somali, learn as from Nyerere? You, Somalia, Uganda is not in a turmoil of war. You are in war. What lessons do you learn? Uganda, where I was born, we finished the war. But you, especially you, who claim to having contacts with colonels in M23, have war. So tell us, how will you solve your war in Somalia?
Look, my war in Somalia.
Otherwise, I give you one point.
Okay.
One minute, or you get out of the platform. Please.
Okay. My war in Somalia is your war. You are African citizen. Somalia.
Yes. So
Africa.
let's talk.
So
that
we
way.
go to solve problems in whole Africa together. So what I want is like a pure African son who represents the misrepresented societies in our continent. I don't want to win someone who's being hired by other agencies to misguide and misrepresent Africa.
Okay, you have made your point. Is that all? Can you now stick to? I have never been hired by any agency. I don't work for CIA. I don't work for any agency in the world. So please, sir, get your facts clear. I am not FBI. I have left you on the platform and I have given you a platform to exercise your rights. I've been fighting for the rights of the Somali people, and I'm fighting against them having arms lifted.
But at the same time, for your last question, you separating us, saying like, talk about Somalia. It's your problem. I feel Uganda is my problem. Kenya is my problem. Congo is my problem because I'm African. I care more than I care anywhere else in the world.
Okay.
Like I care in Somalia. So we should have all that kind of mentality and promote, the mentality that unified us, not what makes us like, to disintegrate, to have like, so we need to create a vision which represents all Africa and Africanism. So when we say like, for example, okay, when we support those criminals, like you were complaining about M23, which is you're right, they doing bad. They are destabilizing the region. They creating wars. They not letting people to live in peace. TBLF is the same thing. So let us differentiate the innocent people and the armed groups and those who creating the terror activities. So the more we come together to oppose those who creating, a terrible makers, and to create a peace-loving people, then we can have a good vision of ideas. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I have you have made
let
that
me
one.
jump in here.
We want to use the microphone for somebody else. So thank you very much. You have made your points, but don't come with accusations that are not. This is not the platform for accusations. And I have never had any accusations because whatever I'm telling you is 100% correct. I know the MPs who are in Somali parliament. Most of them, I helped them to fill forms when they came in 1991. I was already in London. And most of them know me by name. We have shared the plight of being refugees together in London. Most of them have families in London, and they have come back to build their country, and I stand by them. The only person I did not want to stand with is Farimajo, and thanks God he was defeated and he's gone. So if there is any other problem you want to tell me, I'm ready. So bye-bye. Let's wait for Somali. You see, I'm very diplomatic because I grew up in Britain half of my life, and I'm open society. I don't harass people. I want you to have your democracy. Even if you are talking about me, I'll keep the spirit high. I have done nothing wrong, and I have told you I know Esaias Efeki, who is the president of Eritrea, a very dangerous man, and he's the one who has caused this war. Brother, I know him more than you do. So please, let's leave it that way. We are about to come to an end because Hirat came in as a misguided missile and I wanted to create a different debate. But we shall bring you back here and continue following me and continue following others. And always, if you see any mistake that is being done by us, the only thing I want to assure you here, I am a pure African. I don't work for money. If I do to work for money, I would be very rich. You remember when the ICC took place in Kenya? You remember? Here, you will know.
Yeah, very well.
Yes, I went deep single-handedly. If I did not stood high, Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta would not be presidents of Kenya today. Did I get paid? Do I have a double-storied building in Kenya? Do I have even one small room in Kenya which I own? Do I? No. I have not been rewarded, or was I given? But I did it for the good of Africa. I said the cases were not well investigated. And that's what I did. That's it. At times, I was almost going to be killed because of the ICC cases. So Hirat, please, look at my good things. Don't look at small things which are not, and don't tie ears of a dog on my body, which is not a dog. You are tying ears by saying I am a friend of TPLF. I don't know where they get their money. I'm criticizing both sides. They have never given me 10 shillings or $10 to talk on their behalf. No, I'm talking the truth. Both sides have people arming them. They must stop. I was only crying for the corridor for food so that the people in Tigray and Ethiopia, both sides, even Oromo, even that Ogaden region where Mr. Gafi comes from, they are suffering because of the war. And that is why we have to name all the funders of this war. M23, we have to name Uganda, we have to name Congolese government itself. Tshisekedi also arms the rebels who are in Congo. Why are you not naming them? We have to be honest. That's why Rwanda goes to look for these guys. Tshisekedi also arms people there. Why don't you talk like me? You'll talk, if you talk like me, you'll reach my age. Have you seen the Nyerere talking today? It's me. I've said the truth. Haven't you said 100% correct? Parting short, Mr. Hirad.
Nyerere for sure, but I'm not. I'm not too sure about David.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Miriam. We can cool down the waters that had the tsunami was coming, but Hirad and I will always finish it that way. Thank you very much, Abidi, and my friend Abidi. I hope you are not going to be like Hirad.
No, I'm
Make
going
it
to be
short.
brief. I'm going to be very brief. First of all, it's an honor to meet you, Dr. Matsanga. This is my first time being acquainted with you, and I did some research, and you seem to back up what you're talking about, and there's evidence to prove that you've had these views for quite a long time. So I just want to say, you kind of have the mannerisms of a general. So what's the quickest solution to a unified Tanzania and a unified Somalia, and what's the way that we can eventually come together and boost our economies? That's my question. Thank you very much. That's all I had to say. That was my question.
That's your question. You are
That was
saying
my
the
question,
quickest
yeah.
way to where?
To a peaceful Tanzania and Somalia, and how we can come together to boost our own economies.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's a very good question. At least, Abdi, I am in a, you understand, I am a general. I left the army when Hirad was not born, but Hirad is now trying the father. So I will excuse Hirad because he's a younger son of mine, learning politics and learning how to stand and do the things. But that is very good exercise. The question you have asked is very good. How do we have the peace of Tanzania coming in the peace of Somalia? Yesterday, I had a very good, and my co-host Miriam is here. We had a very good, I proposed so many ways that Somalia can be stabilized. One of the ways that you can stabilize Somalia is through giving Somalia the head, the heart, and the stomach. The problem that we have done in Somalia, we are giving them one of the items is missing or two items are missing. For example, fishing. You know why there are many ships that come near your fishing, the waters of the Horn of Africa. The Horn of Africa is the deepest point of the water in Indian Ocean. Fish breeds near the cool waters. not the running waves of the Mozambique channel or the other channel. It comes around the Horn of Africa, where it is deep. The port of the Kismayo is the deepest port on the shores of the Indian Ocean. The sheep, the fish are settled there. Why don't we empower the young Somali jobless people? Buy refrigerated containers with a boat and tell them to go and look for fish, not to look to hijack or to hijack ships, but to look for fish. Go and fish and come back, put your fish in a container, refrigerated. Then a ship from China comes to buy your fish. And in exchange of this container, let's have you bring helpers to collect 250 AK-47s. Can't we win the minds of the younger people? Can't we? Had you ever seen of that? Call me a professor again. Can't that be done? Can't that be done in Somalia? We can do it. The money that we get, we can buy refrigerated containers, even to 20,000 of them. Start a project of that nature. This war will end. But we are not doing it. The corruption, the type of corruption, Abidi, that is embedded in the government that take over Somalia, is where we have got a problem. So those are some of the things that I'm trying to say.
So before you go to the next speaker, basically you're saying that as Somalis, like, we need to leverage our most our highest economic resource, which is fish in the ocean. So we need to leverage that and use it to kind of our benefit.
Exactly. But we are going there with force. We want to force. We want to fight. You know, we want to pour in more troops, but we are not suggesting solutions. Allah, do you see my point? We are not suggesting solutions for Somalia. Let's suggest some solutions for Somalia. And let's see how we can gain peace here. Abidi, I'm bringing that topic again one of these days, maybe Monday in my Matanga space at 9:15. I want you to be there with Hirad. I want us to sukuma hii, tupigane na hii kabisa. Asante sana.
Asante sana, we'll be there.
Okay. Mr. Lukwago from Uganda. My dear brother, there you are, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much.
Make it short and we finish. You can see Miriam in the studios looking at her watch. She would like to go for lunch.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, Doctor, when it comes to unity in Africa, Mzee Nyerere once told us that unity will not make us rich, but it can make it difficult for Africa and the African people not to be humiliated. But you happen to realize straight from those days of 1960s, when Mzee Nyerere tried actually to sweet talk to Dr. Apollo Milton Obote to forego the Western ideas in favor of the left. They called the left, or maybe per se the communist ideas. You saw what happened to him, Dr. Milton Obote. He was kicked out of power. He was by then in Singapore. Then he came up with a nice speech where the British Prime Minister stood up and told, oh, you've come up with a nice speech, but I don't know whether I would go back to Uganda when you are the president. But you happen to realize Mzee Nyerere, the Kenneth Kaunda, they had mobilized the fellow Africans to draw away from those exploitative policies of the Western powers. But the Western powers overpowered these African leaders. That's why we have leaders We have leaders like our president. He had come up with a good trade policy, but he could not even be like Mzee Nyerere, who resisted those exploitative structure adjustment programs, the IMF policies, those exploitative policies. So we have leaders with neo-colonial tendencies and with elites, neo-colonial elites. Okay, because now the people we have are promoting interests of the imperialists. Okay, they have divided us along tribal lines. Think of a situation where they brought together people of different tribes to form a country called Uganda. Okay, to form a country called Kenya. Okay, to form a country called Somalia. They based on clans. So you happen to realize that unity in Africa is still a myth. Talk of Ethiopia. It resisted colonialism. It decisively defeated them. But today, they have turned Africa into a battleground. You've mentioned it clearly that external powers are arming both sides. But African leaders cannot even say a word in what is happening in Ethiopia. Mr. Museveni tried to come up with a tweet. He was forced to delete it. And the BBC highlighted that Museveni deleted his tweet when he commented about what? The hell happening in Ethiopia. So, we Africans, we have got no capacity to rescue our brothers in what? In Ethiopia. We African leaders have got no capacity to stop the hell of hoops going on in Western Africa. Simply, superpowers are at play, fronting their interests in Western Africa. Look what the hell going on in Somalia. Okay? And you see, by then, when they were fighting that leader, the Americans, when they came directly into Somalia, as they were fighting, it was called the Farai did. You may notify me about his name. Back in the 1990s. The gentleman was living in Uganda. But they were fighting him in what? In Somalia.
I did.
Farai did. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doctor. So he was living in Uganda. And the history is repeating itself. They are fighting M23, but they are living in Uganda and Rwanda. So with that, with those kind of double standards, unity in Africa is a myth. Doctor, what happened? What happened to those Pan-African congresses people used to hold? So that you can raise your concerns and those people listen to them. Because now we should go a step ahead to move from rhetorics, because we've lamented a lot. Doctor, we have lamented what happened to the likes of Tom Mboya. He was assassinated, that one I was told. But he came up with a program that identified bright Africans. His scholarship. That is so Obama becoming the president of the United States of America. Where are those people? Right? Where are the likes of Tom Mboya? What happened to the likes of these Du Bois? Du Bois, who moved the country to country to country. They are constantly raised the likes of Nkuruma, the Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, to demand for independence. But the current generation, Doctor, we've been rendered gullible. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Oh my God, Miriam, this is real fire. Lukwago, I hope you have taken yourself to the bunker. Are you speaking from Kampala?
Exactly. I'm at Chireka, opposite Nambore. Okay? I don't need to cover myself.
Oh my God.
Dr. David, Dr. Mustag, why don't you bring in us Julius Malema, the guy that I most like in South Africa?
The South African topic is going to be hot with Julius Malema, but one of the things that I am not happy with Julius Malema is that I have lived in a cosmopolitan climate. I've lived 37 years in Britain. I understand what life is also. So I mixed, I balanced. Malema doesn't balance. He has only lived in Limpopo. You know, that's the difference. Are you with me now? The difference is that Malema has only lived in Limpopo of South Africa. Dr. Matsanga, I have lived in Britain. They have given me food. They have given me shelter. They have given me education, which I have, the tools of analysis. So when handling topics of this nature, I'm careful not to be too much of a radical ultra-nationalist like Malema. Malema is an ultra-nationalist, square, kabisa. He doesn't even spare some of the things that Malema says are very damaging to your platform. You can't host him. They will close down your platform. So for me, I have lived in those areas, and I've got what I want: the education, the exposure, the international approach on how to handle some things. That's why you see me at times I go up but come down to my Hirad. I know what Hirad does. Hirad is always like that, and he wants to create chaos in every platform he goes. Ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah,
I want to
I
thank
know
you.
the Hirar, Dr. Mataga Hirar. I know Hirar. He is a close ally of Abiy by Farmacho and Abiy from Somalia. He don't care
Yes,
what's going on, the human rights abuses, but just as a kind of quote
I
unquote.
know. I know him. He's one of the advisors of Farimajo, so that's why I've hit him so hard. And I got the MPs in parliament to vote him Farimajo out. That's why he's very annoyed with me. Yes, I have influence in Africa also. If you didn't know it.
Dr. Fred,
So now
I
let's come to a close. We
Doctor,
want to
may I chip in a little bit?
Our satellite is saying we have to check. Our satellite time is gone. We want Tawish to summarize all the points, and Miriam bring out one of the issues, especially what Fred brought out. But before I give Tawish to say vote of thanks, I would like to ask Kafidit 1 minute, Fred 1 minute, Miriam will close the station with clear points that have come out of discussion. Tawish, a vote of thanks to our people, and Miriam closes down with points. Then I summarily end the session until next Friday. And Monday I am on, but Friday, from now onwards, we shall be doing this between 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock. But we are past 12 o'clock. We are now going to 12:30. It looks like there's demand. As we go to close, there are more people coming in who were not there before. So thank you very much. Lukwago, you have something to say?
Yes, actually, Dr. Masang, I wish you join Ugandans, per se Bobby Wine, who's doing his best to rescue fellow Africans. They are pride, actually. Fellow Africans, most
now
Ugandans.
Bobby Wine should join me, because I'm the eldest. Bob Wine is my son.
Yes.
Yeah, let's respect each other. I am also one of the few fighters for freedom in my country. Bob Wine should also come to me for consultation, because he needs consultation as a younger man. He's actually like my firstborn daughter. My firstborn daughter is the same age as Bob Wine. Don't you think that I'm worth to be consulted?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
But Doctor,
So
what I was trying to
you tell him that Dr.
Yes.
Matsanga has been there before, has opposed dictatorship before, one-party state, and therefore I need to be consulted. I'm not going to consult him. He needs to consult me.
Okay, Doctor, my point is all about calling on all Africans, over whoever is concerned, to raise the issue of Africans. Because Bobby Wine tried to stage a concert within Dubai.
That's
he tried to stage a concert within Dubai to raise money that would see Ugandans and Kenyans suffering within Middle East countries coming back, because all they need is a ticket. But government of Uganda through its embassy failed that attempt. Okay, and that is not unity.
You are banning the platform. Leave it. We know, we understand what Bob Wine is going through is what Matanga went through long time ago, Lukwago. Did you know that? That's what I went through. You know that very well. One of these days, you will come slowly to where, when I'm for bringing up the plight of Ugandans and the Kenyans and Africans who are in Saudi Arabia who are suffering. Miriam, we shall look at that topic one of these days. What makes them go there, first of all? Why do you accept? Is it poverty here? Okay, but if you are going from poverty to death, won't you stay in poverty-stricken area than going there? Those are the questions we shall be asking. Now, 1 minute, Gafidi. One minute.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me proceed. 1 minute. Okay, thank you, Dr. Matag. I will come next week, and I hope that you will schedule on issue on Ogaden or in some other region, whatever you call, and take right together. I can proceed it, and I appreciate the way you were putting in terms of ultra nationality of Julius Malema and your safety, and you are right about that. And it's my first time to attend your program. I appreciate it, and thank you for your inviting us. Schedule and let me know at the time that you will be launching that program. And I really thank you to talk about the Ogaden region on Ethiopian issue, and thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. 1 minute to Fred.
Thank you, Dr. Masanga, again. What I have to say is just one thing, that for Africa to leave the legacy of Mwalimu Kambarage Nyerere, we have to start living like him. First, we must make sure that we are never neutral in terms of our crisis. When Uganda happened, Nyerere took a stand. When Biafra happened, Nyerere took a stand. This idea of trying to remain neutral, the African Union remaining neutral in places where you know that so and so is abusing human rights, is wrong. Take a stand. Tell, if it is Rwanda, tell Rwanda that what you're doing with M23 is wrong. Withdraw, leave M23 to fight their own battle, or we have to deal with you. That is how we must move forward from now. We have to tell people that you are wrong. We have to tell people that this, what you're doing here is not right. Even in the crisis in Tigray, if there are issues that have to be handled, then you can become an arbiter. But where something wrong or some abuse of human rights has happened, then Africa has to take a stand and say, we cannot support you, we cannot remain neutral in times where we have noticed that you are actually abusing human rights. Thank you very much, Dr. Masanga. That's my time over.
Thank you very much, Fred, and continue watching us also on Punchline. We shall send you tag each other. We shall send you this clip so that you know exactly what you spoke, how you listened to some of the things you did not get. Let's be talking to each other. I don't know why Severini Alute has kept quiet, because I don't know why he is not talking about his own country. But Dr. Severini Aluse, I can see you here quiet somewhere in the corner. Thank you very much. Tawish, Samuel. Then Miriam, prepare our points we have made out of this discussion. Samuel, Ole Susana.
Thank you so much, Dr. Masanga, and thank you, colleague panelist, for that well thought out presentation. I really want to appreciate, because again, it's been a very nice and candid discussion. We've been listening through, various speakers really putting forth their submissions. And I think, Dr. Masanga, even before I register really a vote of thanks, and a vote of thanks to our panelists and all the correspondents who have spoken in this particular show. I think it is very important also for us to stress really this particular topic that we have been handling this morning about, what is it that the African people and the African continent can learn from the late president, that is Julius Kabarage Nyerere, also famously known as Mwalimu. Dr. Masanga, I think, and the question is there lessons, are there lessons that we can learn from President Kabarage Nyerere during his time when he was leading the people of Tanzania? And when you listen through, the submissions from all the panelists, you can clearly tell, Dr. Masanga, that there's a general agreement or consensus that there was a huge contribution from President Nyerere, one which we must all really try to live, or rather try to fit into, in terms of seeing how we can, of course, cherish his time, cherish what the ideals that he lived for, and the kind of passion, the African statesmanship that he exhibited during his time. And I think, Dr. Masanga, you and I, and of course the rest of the panelists here,
first of all, he was a Pan-Africanist. He was a great statesman, and he was a man of really a great stature as far as I think trying to lay the foundations of Pan-Africanism is concerned. He had a vision. He had this Ujamaa philosophy, whereby he wanted to create a society that was founded on unity, on principles of unity, principles of equitable distribution of resources. However, the imperialists could not let him execute this vision, because this would have been a model, I think, for the rest of Africa. By trying to found a Ujamaa society, he wanted to pull the resources together so that he would create amenities, for example, for the community in terms of schools and in terms of hospitals, and in terms of resources like water, roads, infrastructure, and the like. Well, this vision was cut short. They wouldn't allow him roll out this great experiment that I think Africa would have benefited from. But also as a person, I mean, he was a man of great stature, and it's not any wonder that now the Catholic Church is trying to canonize him to make a saint of this great man, great African icon, so to say. So I think, what he did lay a foundation for Tanzania. Look at Tanzania, it really, it stands out from the rest of East Africa, whether it's in terms of unity and in terms of its linguistic as a unifying factor. But also the institutions have survived the test of time. There have been successions that have passed, that have transited very, very well without any problems. If you compare to Uganda or to Kenya, where we've seen violence, but of course, we've seen most violence in Uganda than the rest of the East African countries. But we owe this to Mzee Julius Nyerere for his great vision. So I think I would just not help to contribute my thoughts about this great statesman, and I think he's a great source of inspiration. I just hope the other African leaders can emulate him. Sadly, most of the current African leaders are far from this man in terms of political ideals, in terms of the achievements that they've accomplished. So thank you very much, Dr. Matsanga, for giving me this opportunity. And yeah, it's been a long time. Kamahua. Thank you very much.
I was almost guessing from the voice.
Yeah.
And that's why I could not.
But remember my Club 779, sir. Anyway,
yes.
The rest is history. Thank you very much.
No, you
nice
better tell them. Joe.
Yes.
You better tell the people that the gentleman speaking here created employment in the United Kingdom.
You did. It is a fact. It's not fiction.
You are one of my people who used to come to my nightclub.
Absolutely, 100%.
And
in London.
By the way, I want to be very honored here, the few who are left here, that I created a nightclub that produced the presidential candidate.
Absolutely right, sir.
In Kenya, Dr. Wakikoya, you remember him bouncing you outside there?
I know, I do.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you too.
Thank you very much. This is the spirit of working hard for Africa. And
Absolutely.
I've discovered that Mr. Hirad is a close ally of Mr. Ifeki of Eritrea.
All right.
I have just discovered that. There. Miriam, I've sent the photograph to Stephen for you in future.
All right.
I now know why he was shouting, because I had touched Isaiah Safeki. And thank you very much, Joe, for always, please, I am following you. You follow me now.
I
Send
will.
your number in
I will,
in
doctor.
my inbox,
Absolutely. There's a lot
so
of
that
catching up.
we catch
Thank
up
you.
in our Croydon. We can go to Nobre for our Chinese.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you. This is
And
what
God
a
bless you
great
too.
day today.
Thank you.
What a
Thank you.
great day today. Thank you very much, Miriam. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, in studios in Nairobi. Thank you very much for hosting this platform. Thank you, all of you, the speakers. I want to take this opportunity to again say every Friday at 10 o'clock up to 1 o'clock. Now we shall extend it that way. Tune in and enjoy, relax. This is the new format of television that we are going to have. Let's have topical issues on Africa. Let's see how Africa can move. How can we move Africa from the point of a supplier of raw materials to the whole world, yet we are beggars? I land the microphone. Thank you very much, Miriam. I've learned something new. Land the